I wanted to start by asking you what sustainability innovation you're most excited about that you think presents the biggest opportunity.
Thank you, Jonathan, and it's great to be here. It's great to be exchanging ideas with people, with leaders, because this is a critical moment for innovations. And I will say it's not only one innovation. We're seeing innovations in different levels, and I think that this is what needs to happen to see a transformational change. On one hand, I was in the water conference last week, and I heard about a new variety of crop that will be reducing the consumption of water in rice, which is a very important crop. It's the third crop that has more land, that it is covered with more land around the world, and that it is consuming a lot of water and generating a lot of methane. So with this new variety, for example, we will be achieving a lot of benefits in terms of water conservation, in terms of our net zero targets, and also in terms of biodiversity conservation. So there is this kind of innovations at the field level. But I'm also very impressed of seeing what communities are bringing to the table. And it's talking about nature-based solutions. And what you're seeing globally are that when you have communities, local leaders protecting some forests, protecting the watersheds, then we can guarantee as well to have water for all the actions that we need. Water at the end is critical, but protecting the land. And it's about understanding that we will need this sometimes complex innovations coming from research and investigation, and that will probably be developed by the companies and the private sector. But there are also innovations on understanding that sometimes this traditional knowledge that the indigenous communities are bringing to the table are the kind of elements that we will need to scale up as well. So it's to find this kind of solutions, and then to really, I think that the moment right now it's about how to scale up all these solutions.
So what do you see as the biggest challenge when it comes to, let's say, scaling up kind of nature-based solutions? Is it finance? Is it policy?
It's a combination. We have a big issue on time. What we are hearing coming from science is that we're getting to these tipping points and we're affecting the different systems. And we have the knowledge and we have the technologies to really make these changes. But we have a time issue. And this will require then to work with partnerships, public and private sector, because we need good policies in place. Policy matters. When we have these policies in place that allows you to protect the land, allows you to give value to nature, then we can start also generating and giving good signals to the market. And at the same time, it's about working in different levels. We need to work at the local level, national, regional, and global level, everything at the same time. And to do this, we need to work with partnerships, accelerating action. Yes, of course, mobilizing trillions of dollars for this transformation, but that it's also good business, because what we are seeing is that for every dollar that you invest in good land management practices, you get economic benefits that range many in numbers, in huge numbers. And we are seeing that it's a good business case. And I would like to share the case of Costa Rica again. Costa Rica was the country with the highest deforestation rate 20, 30 years ago. The country decided to make a change in the policies in that moment, to stop land use change, to prohibit land use change, but also to give incentives, to recognize and to give payment to the landowners that were protecting and managing the forest. And this was the scheme of payment of environmental services. And it was through this change in regulation saying it's not good, we cannot continue with this land use pattern, destroying ecosystems, and also bringing in incentives that was this money in the fund is generated through a tax on fossil fuels. This was implemented and designed 20 years ago.
Wow.
So it was putting the money there in the forestry fund, and then saying we need to mobilize these resources there to the communities, to the local landowners. And then it's incredible what is the transformation that happened in the country in the last 30 years. And this created a new industry, tourism,
Absolutely.
generating benefits. So it's about understanding that when you do this transformation, you can also generate economic benefit. And the country now has stopped the deforestation rate, increased the forest cover, and also increased the GDP of the country. So I think that when we manage to really give coherence to the policies, when we manage to give the right incentives, recognize the value of nature, recognize the value of healthy land, then we can see these transformations happening at the scale. And right now I will say the time, really bringing time to, the big challenge, I will say.
It's a fantastic example, and I've been to Costa Rica, and I've been to the forest there, the rainforest there. It's an absolutely beautiful country, and it's amazing that you're so ahead of the curve in terms of that policy. Are there other countries that have taken other approaches, interesting approaches to, you mentioned the policies around valuing nature? Are there other things that we're seeing there?
Yes, absolutely. We're seeing very interesting cases, for example, in Rwanda as well, saying what's the situation right now of the forest, what's the situation managing the landscapes with agriculture, and also trying to identify ways to work and making land management and conservation of nature part of their development model. So there's interesting things happening in Rwanda, Gabon as well. Gabon saying, we are carbon positive. We have a lot of forest. We are really protected in the Congo Basin, which is critical not only for Gabon, but for Africa to continue generating rain all over and to guarantee water security. And they're doing amazing things in terms, again, of how to be effective in protecting and managing, and how to guarantee that nature is really an asset and it's part of the development model, and it's not something that you say it's either development or nature conservation or land restoration. No. We can have we can have prosperity and a good development model based on protecting, restoring land, protecting, restoring nature. And this is what will guarantee at the same time water security, food security. And I think that if we understand that we have right now the technology and the knowledge to produce the food that we need without continue destroying land and degrading land. But it's about bringing all this efficiency, understanding what it's the way that we are producing food, the way that we are producing different materials, and that we need to implement these changes all over these value chains. Then it's, I think, this element of working in those levels, having the value chain approach, but also the multi-level approach that we were referring to in terms of the local, regional, national, and global level.
Yeah. You mentioned that it will take trillions of investment, and we are giving out money here. We're asking everyone, what would you do with $100 billion? I mean, you mentioned a few things, but maybe if you had that money to invest, how could you sort of further along some of the innovations that you mentioned, as well as the sort of desire to place the value on nature? What would you invest in?
In supporting and enhancing women access to land. What we are seeing is that women can really be this transformational force. So it's how to unleash this power that girls and women have all over the world in terms of being stewards, managers of land, in terms of really also guaranteeing that they are taking care of food security issues and of health issues, of nutrition issues. And you will find one common factor there, and it's women. And probably it's one of these policies that in some regions could be very challenging to implement them because we have traditional issues, religion issues, And in some areas of the world, less than 4% of women are owners of the land.
So, Andrea, if you could implement one policy that could help us to achieve global sustainability and climate goals, what would it be?
One policy. Why only one policy and not more policies? But if we have
The most important one.
the most important one, and maybe the one that can have multiple benefits, I will say that strengthen women's access to land. What we're seeing is that when you have girls and women all over the world really engage in protecting their natural resources, their land, and being stewards of their land. And what we see is that they are really doing a great job. In many cases, with just a few resources, but really guaranteeing to be managing that forest, to be managing that area that it is generating water resources, but at the same time, taking a lot of actions in terms of guaranteeing that nutrition for their family, welfare for their community. So at the end is what could be a good way to really unleash all that power that girls and women can bring to the table for this transformation that we need. And the numbers are really bad. When we go and see certain regions, the MENA region, for example, we see that less than 4% of women have land titles. And what we know is that around 50% of the workforce in agricultural sector, for example, are women. So we need to understand that in some regions or in some places this could be challenging because we have cultural issues, because we have, in some cases, even regulations that not allow women to own land. Then it's globally we need to do something. And this is why we are at UNCCD launching this campaign that it is called Her Land, Her Rights. Because we really believe that if we want to do land conservation, if we want to achieve the biodiversity goals, and of course the climate goals, we really need to address this gender inequality on the access to land. And I really invite the different people participating in this event to join the campaign. This could be a very transformational policy.
And the campaign's objective is policy change? Or?
Policy change. We need to understand in some countries will be, yes, we have this religious issue, and we need to understand it. We need to study and see what could be the way to address it. And in others are really legal actions. But we have some good examples of Sierra Leone, some countries that are, identifying the problem and really bringing solutions in terms of policy actions that they are taking to facilitate that women can really have access to land.
So, Economist Impact's Global Food Security Index showed a deterioration in food systems over the past 3 years. Do you agree with that? Does that sort of jibe with your analysis and what you're seeing? And why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think that we are seeing that, yes, in terms of what we're doing to nature, to land, this is correct, this is happening. But I think that the only interesting element of the analysis is that they also highlight this gender issue, this gender inequality, also as a way to address food security. So again, there's multiple benefits. I will say that with the index, yes, we do have the information. We know that we're not on track with the climate goals. We know that we need to accelerate action right now if we want to achieve the 2030 goals of the biodiversity framework. But if we don't do this transformation, if we stop degrading land, and if we continue destroying our ecosystems, then of course we will be seeing all these impacts as well in food security issues. And again, the gender element as a transformative policy that we can bring to the table.
What about, obviously, COP28's on the horizon later this year? What are some of the key outcomes that you hope to see emerge from COP28?
Well, of course, I will say it's important to continue moving on the loss and damage fund. And it's important that this loss and damage conversation also includes and prioritizes drought. Drought is really having a lot of impacts in many areas, and it should be also considered as one of the elements. But the other thing is we need to accelerate action, and I think that this is the critical point here. We will have the global stocktake, and I hope that the global stocktake can bring concrete advices, concrete options on how to accelerate action. Not only we know that we're not on track, I think that at the end, the global stocktake will come and say, yes, we're doing really bad here. We're not really on track here. But again, it's about how to change the pattern, change the pathway, and accelerate action. And I hope that the global stocktake could give concrete options, solutions on how to accelerate action.
Food affordability is also an increasing issue for many countries. How can quality food be made more accessible and affordable?
Well, again, we need to understand that when you have healthy land, normally you will be having then better quality of food. And in this way, we will be able then, in many cases, to guarantee that a lot of local communities will have their livelihoods and will have the food that they need. Of course, we know that the way that we are producing food has changed, and it's now a global chain, and it's about bringing these two issues of sustainability and also of equity. There's two issues that we need to address to really guarantee these goals. So on one hand, to really work with the communities to have this healthy land, to guarantee to have this healthy food, but in the other hand as well, to work with the international companies to bring good solutions that are reasonable in terms of price, that can really be transferred in to the different countries, to the different local producers that we have, and again, to guarantee that we will not be doing new land use change in order to keep and produce new food. Because the science is telling us we can increase the efficiency, we can produce more with less land, and this is the challenge.
Final question. So we've seen some recent momentum on global action to protect biodiversity. Or do you think that that's suggestive of good progress, and how do we keep that sustained?
I think that what happened with the Kunming-Montreal agreement is great because now we have concrete targets. We know that we need to protect 30% of the land, that we need to restore 30% of land and ocean by 2030. And I think that when we have these concrete targets, then it's easier to align the different communities, the private sector, the different countries towards the same goal. So I think that, yes, now that we have the targets there, the 30 by 30, for example, target, how can we, and it's what we need to do in this short term, give coherence to the different national development plans, and again, putting nature and putting these targets as part of the actions that we will be developing, and what are the kind of mobilization of public money that we will have to achieve these targets, give coherence to this, but then also make sure that as well the corporate plans are aligned with these targets. And I think that when we have a number, a concrete target, the magic is that it's possible then to really generate this global movement with concrete solutions to achieve the same target. Now we know and where we need to go. So it's about putting the leadership, bringing the head of states, bringing the CEOs, bringing the local community leaders, working for the same goal. And everyone has a role to play. So I think that at least if we give coherence to this, then we can see the change that it is needed.
Wonderful. Andrea Meza, UNCCD, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.